In this video, we will work on adding the far background mountain. To begin with, let us head over to Adobe Bridge and open up image 5804. Now, this particular image has a good profile and overall feel to what we need when it comes to adding the background mountains. Now, once it's open, we need to extract the mountain out. So let's head over to our channels palette and look for the channel with the maximum contrast. In our case, it's the blue channel. Now let's make a copy of that and open up levels. In order to extract an image, we need to make a high contrast mask, so let's push our black and white values so we get a more crunchier image. Now, since the value of the snow is pretty close to the value of the sky, pushing the levels more can result in losing the details in the snow around the edges, and we need those. So here, let's turn to a different technique. Switching over to my brush tool and selecting a soft round brush with pressure sensitivity set to opacity and pen pressure, we are going to paint in our mask. But before we start painting, we need to go over and change the mode of that brush. We need to set that to overlay. Now selecting the black color, I'm going to start painting in the selection which needs to be included into our mask. Now the way overlay works is that it uses a combination of the multiply blending mode on the darker pixels and the screen blending mode on the lighter pixels, both applied to about 50% of their strength. The middle 50% gray tones are not affected. Now overlay looks at the brightness of the layers or image below and calculates how much to lighten and darken based off it. So in our case, we need to include the snow on the mountain into our mask. So we need to paint it black, but the sky needs to stay separate. Now the value of the sky is very close to white. So I use a combination of black and white color set to my brush to extract our edge. Now we need to go over our entire edge, switching between the black and white color to make sure that we can extract the edge as good as we can. Now, sometimes clouds or fog, elements like these which are pretty light will suddenly start becoming dark due to this overlay technique, so we need to be careful here. Now, there will be a few sections which might have already turned to complete white, so to work on them, I have to switch to my chalk brush and just paint those black. Now this brush has been set to normal, so it's just like painting with a regular chalk brush. Going over and including these small bits of white color in. Again, our aim is to try and extract the edge as good as we can. Continuing alongside to the right. And following the contour of the shape. Now using overlay has given us quite a head start, and doing the same by just using a standard brush would have taken us a lot more time. Heading over to the left side and making sure we are including everything in. Let me just switch back to overlay to just tighten this edge. Now let's make a selection and include the area we want to keep. Now since we have already painted or added black in there, we can make our selection, or rather keep our selection a little bit loose, and it will still include everything in. Just fill that with black. Now there is this small bit of area to the left, I'll include that as well. We might not need it, but since I'm extracting it, let me just do that. Again, same goes on to the one with the right. We might not need it, but I'm just making sure my mask is tight. Now to confirm that I don't have many values in the middle other than black or white, I'm just going to bring up levels and confirm this. Now invert the mask, select it, and let's bring in our Refine Edge tool. Enable Smart Radius, add a small value there. And in the output, check on Decontaminate Colors and let's hit OK. Duplicate the layer and apply the mask. And now let's bring this extracted mountain into our matte painting. Now, keeping our organizational workflow in mind, let's make a new folder, call it BG for background, and set the blending mode for that folder to normal. Now, we need to transform the mountain to the desired dimension. Now, it needs to have a strong dominant presence, so positioning it around there might work for us. Let's scale that down a little bit more. Yeah, just around that cloud, it seems to work well for us. Now that feels about right. So now that we have our mountain in place, we need to integrate that into our scene. So let's first rename our layer, turn on our global black and white layer, and first let's spend time adjusting just the values. So on a new curves adjustment layer, I'm just going to clip it to the background mountain, and let's start to adjust and work on the values. Now since the mountain is going to be far off, we need to raise the blacks. Let's push the black point up, and just above the middle, let's bring it back to the standard median. Adding another curves layer on top. Let's push the blacks further up. Again, setting a point on the existing line and then pushing the black values up. And it's the values of the rocks around this point which needs to be slightly pushed. Now the value of the cloud and the value of the rocks are pretty close to each other, so they are working for us. Switching off my black and white layer, let's put in a color balance to start working on the color. Now in the midtones, we need to add blues and cyans. Pushing the blues up a little bit more. All right, so that seems to be working for us. This is about getting it in the general ballpark area. We would be spending a few further lessons just on integrating it, but for now, we're just trying to get everything into one world. So in this video, we went over extracting the mountain using different techniques and brought that into the scene and did some basic adjustment to make sure it's working for us. Now in the next lesson, let's spend some more time working on the integration of this mountain.